guys are those that are attending virtually. Both of them and their companies, Blackpoint and Compliancy Group, came to Martinsville back in February and did an absolute outstanding job in terms of security. They have been some real leaders in terms of medical and also cybersecurity and some next-gen AV, and they've really been involved here within the U.S. about leading people in the direction where they need to be going in right now, and the things that we're dealing with when it comes to security, compliance, what it is to compliance with working from home, and then also what that's going to look like returning from work from home to work. And so I really appreciate both of them being with us today. And
well, I mean, the great thing about all of this and having them here is what this helps us in just translating to businesses and IT people, and, you know, coming from a remote setting back into the workplace. You know, when you can streamline and come into compliance because you don't know what's supposed to be done, but you can create a plan and streamline it, that's going to really help you have a process, and that's going to help you save money because everything's going in the same direction. You don't have things, your attention, your process, your the way of doing everything isn't scattered. And I know everybody who had to like pivot really quickly, that's been something that made people uneasy, and we have to bring it back in. So we didn't have a lot of time to plan to get out, but now we have time to plan to get in. So I think that's what's important about having these guys help you guys and us, you know, creating plans to do that and to help you save money and to create by streamlining things and having compliance, and then obviously security, that you're not wasting precious time and resources.
So without further ado, which one of you gentlemen would like to go first?
I'll go first if you want, Paul, or you can go, or we can, rock, paper, scissors it. What do you want to do?
And I'm happy to let you go. I'll back clean up.
Okay. All right. See here, I'm going to share. You guys have to give me permission. No, you did. Okay, cool. All right, we'll get the show started here. Oops. All right. So I started in the middle. Go figure. I need more coffee. All right. So I'm Ryan with Blackpoint. And I'll talk a little bit about, Blackpoint in general. I'm the VP of sales at Blackpoint. I've had the luxury of, working with kind of the cutting edge of security tech over the last, I'd say, 5 years, working with some very talented individuals who were kind of on the forefront of the cybersecurity, intelligence community. So I've learned quite a lot from those guys. So I'll tell you who we are first and foremost. So just real briefly, and then we'll get right into it. So again, I'm Ryan Denning, VP of Sales, Blackpoint Cyber. The core group that founded Blackpoint Cyber really invented the technology and built it. All came out of the National Security Agency. Everyone from my founder, who is on screen right now, John Murchison, CEO and founder, he worked at the NSA for 12 years running cyber operations for our country's top missions. And our, CTO, our director of threat operations, who runs our security operations center in Baltimore, all of these guys, ex-intelligence. So the idea that John had was, hey, I want to use live asset visibility to threat hunt in real time. And we'll get into that later. But it was kind of his vision. So he formed the company. This is our current board of directors and strategic advisors. We obviously assembled a very, strong, pedigree and leadership with our board. These guys don't do the work every day, but I think at a minimum, it illustrates how serious we are about delivering the best product we can. What I will tell you guys is these individuals don't put their name just on anybody's product, and so we're very proud to have them. And I think that's a testament to John in his cloud in the intelligence community. Definitely followed him over to the private world. So let's get into it. What we're going to start with here is I'm going to start with some ransomware stats, right? Just because these are interesting and they're affecting people both at home and in the office as always, but more so now at home. The stats have changed a little bit, which is really interesting. So we're going to start with some ransomware stats. Then we're going to go into kind of some different things regarding the, what I call kind of the different areas of remote security and things that are important to keep your eye on. So as far as the ransomware goes, on average, what we're seeing now is a 3-day average dwell time on your network before they actually are deploying the actual ransomware themselves. So what that means is they are scanning, stealing credentials, and causing noise, etc., for 3 days before the actual attack when it comes to ransomware. The good news is, there is a chance to detect them while they are moving around and scanning and stealing the credentials in the network before they actually ransom you. So there is a chance, although 3 days is not very long, comparatively speaking. So some other things to consider here, and you might be aware of this, but these are the top ways ransomware gets into a network. So you've got brute force attacks against workstations with RDP, which stands for remote desktop, and allows access in remotely. Ports open on the internet. That is the #1 way ransomware happens. We see this every day. And I'll talk more about that RDP stuff later. Spear phishing against the company's employees and using an infected host to spread to others. So think about the zombie analogy, right? You go in, a zombie bites the first one, it bites another one. Now there's 2 zombies and they bite and it just spreads that way. It happens the exact same way, but they spear phish one guy and then they get in and spread to the others. And then, of course, there's the drive-by download. So you're surfing the web and, people are at home now. They're surfing the web a lot, probably more so than they were at the office, and so when they hit these infected, spoofed websites, they can download malware infected files and it'll start to encrypt them. And so that's the other third most popular way we see these ransomwares coming in. So anyways, some extra, interesting data on ransomware specifically in Q4 of 2019, right? The average ransom payment increased by 104%. So on average, it was roughly $84,000 from $41,000 in Q3. So really shot up there. And there's a company called Coveware that does a lot of ransomware research that you guys can look up online and get some more data. I'm interested to see what their findings are in 2020 thus far, with everyone being at home like that. The good news is Bitcoin is down 20%. So if you buy your Bitcoin now, it'll be like getting a discount when you get ransomware. So that's good. It can save some money there. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Just kidding.
So dark.
So
dark.
I've seen, I couldn't help it. I've seen these malicious actors starting to take step forward. And now actually, on top of ransoming you, if you don't pay them, they're actually releasing data to try and publicly shame you. So just keep that in mind, out there when you hear about this stuff. So
are you seeing now, with our current situation, Ryan, are you seeing more because there was such a rush to work from home just to get it out of the office that we have, in your opinion, you think we have problems there because there was such a rush to rip out and get home?
Yeah, I've seen definitely an uptick there, slightly. With that, and really it goes back to that RDP thing, which I'm going to talk about some more later, Brian, because a lot of people set stuff up in a hurry, and obviously an easy way to do that is to RDP. Having that open to the internet is not a good thing, as you know. And so I'll talk a little bit about it. But yeah, there's definitely been an uptick about it, and that's why I wanted to bring shed some light on ransomware and just some current facts there. You know, so being that people are home, right, there's a little bit less protection sometimes, you know, than you would in your normal network environment, right? Because you have your edge protections there in your normal network and whatnot. So how do we get to the ransomware phase, right? How does this stuff kind of start to happen? There's malware trends that you can look at that'll show you different things. And these are things that we look at as a company, protecting people and defending them against this stuff too. We watch these trends. And so I got these from AnyRun Sandbox, but these are the three most popular kind of tool sets that hackers use in a network environment to breach and to laterally spread and to enumerate and gather intelligence on someone's environment. And so by watching these numbers, you can actually get a pretty good idea of what's going on with ransomware, because what happens is after the attackers use these three different kinds of malware, they leave them behind. So they're kind of in there on the systems undetected a lot of times. And what happens is they then take these, what we'll just call them footholds, these Emotet, Dridex, and TrickBot footholds, and they sell them on the dark web for people to ransomware. So it's actually a kind of a ransomware precursor. So by watching these Emotet infections and Dridex and whatnot, you can get a good idea of what the ransomware is going to end up doing after they sell those footholds. So that's why I like to follow these three particular tool sets, you know, because like I said, once they're done in the network, they'll sell them off. So I caught a sample of Dridex, actually. It wasn't me, it was actually Javier, my threat ops director, was doing some Amazon click fraud actually to promote products using Dridex on a corporate network and their click fraud bots. So we pulled the URLs and actually drilled down into them, and it was promoting random books for this click-through fraud. So it must be a really cutthroat market, you know, the book people. So anyways, here's what I wanted to really get to. That's enough about ransomware. You guys, you know, probably see that, but I thought that was insightful, and especially when people are working from, you know, remote places now, and that rush, like Brian said, to get there quickly. So we look at these four categories when you look at wanting to protect yourselves from home. I mean, this is really kind of the crux of it, and what you got to protect and look at. So, you know, we're thinking about malware trends and statistics, but how could they change and alter their tactics, knowing now that there's this massive remote workforce and everyone's moved home? And the four areas, you really break it down into these four risk categories. And I'm even going to talk about some recent ones like Zoom, which is kind of ironic because we're on Zoom right now. So it'll be kind of funny. So we've got user devices, right? The USBs, you know, laptops, all of those types of things. That's one risk category, okay? The next one's software. Moving to home, first of all, everyone's installing a ton of software, not just to pick on Zoom particularly, but everyone's installing Zoom. Everyone's installing a lot of software. So you've got another risk category there, installing all these softwares. Excuse me. The third one's VPNs and networking, and how that changes when you're not in the office and you're moving home, and now you've got networking issues at the home. And then, of course, servers, right? How do we access that data that we were in the office? And that's another area, and particularly RDP, which you've heard me say a couple of times. So we'll be talking about that specifically. But these are kind of those four risk categories. So I'm going to swing at the first pitch here. We all know users click and run. It's just that's what happens. You know, even with training and stuff, it still can happen, although the training is going to help you. And, you know, Brian and Mary can definitely help you with that piece of it too. But, you know, they're going to click things. And honestly, it's tough. So,
Ryan, can I say something about that? We were
yeah,
just dealing with a customer that the owner, we told the owner, make sure the employee doesn't click on this. And then the employee, the owner walks away, clicks on it. And we're like, no. So we're like massive, like, and you would think you're telling them don't do it. It's the curiosity. What's it going to do?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you tell them. It's like
Human nature.
human nature. You got to touch it. You got to touch that button, see what it does.
It's like that toddler challenge that was going around. It's like put the candy in front of them and say, don't eat it until I get back. And they're like, you know,
it
it's
is.
just,
It really is. You guys are right. And they make it enticing, you know. Some of these spoof things they do look just like real ones. But yeah, you know, they're going to click things. So at a bare minimum, you've got to have an AV, guys, or moreover an EDR. Again, these are things that are really a bare minimum, and they're things that Brian and Mary, again, can help you guys with. But, you know, again, think of that like the bare minimum to protect yourselves. Another overlooked aspect of kind of this drastic shift in remote working is changes to your incident response plan. If you had an incident response plan while you were at the office, you need to update it for your remote environments that you guys are all dealing with now. And how long and how much it would cost to overnight, say, a new device if it did get ransomware for somebody at home where you had to fix that, or, you know, your backup and recovery plan via a remote workforce. You know, update those and look at them, because that's going to be really important, you know. And so DNS filtering, that's another thing. You know, DNS filtering is another thing Mary and Brian can help you with, but that's going to help with those drive-by downloads like I was talking about before, where, you know, you go in there, they're going to bad websites that are known bad or known malicious, and these things are literally created in like 24 hours. They'll whip up a new bad one. So you got to stay current on that. And they spoof sites, and they, you know, you mistype one thing and it can go there. So DNS is a big thing for protecting users at home environment. And then audit your local admins. And I know you business owners out there, you know, this is what you always hear. We're going to tell you, you don't need admin access, right? If you need something, we can get it to you in a short period and then take it away again. And that's sometimes tricky for business owners and you know, executives to accept. But the reality is, if you don't need local admin access or admin access, you know, don't keep it, or have a separate account where you can log into that separately when you do need to do admin stuff, but it's not on your normal profile. And again, those are all things that Brian and Mary can help you with or have helped you with. But these are also things that are like low-hanging fruit that will help protect your home users in this kind of remote world we find ourselves in right now. And just a little bit more about the user devices. So, you know, another consideration is USB device control. You know, we had a client the other day get hit by one of these old school auto run USB malware. You know, it went right into the user's home drive, which means it can track down, it gets to the file server basically that way. And it is a little tricky tracking down stuff when these malwares come from, you know, the file drive, the file share drive. So this particular image I'm showing you right here, this is what we call a USB rubber ducky, because most USB control solutions that you deploy, they're, you know, going to whitelist or blacklist things based on detecting if the USB device is of a mass storage configuration, right? So you plug in a USB, if it's a storage USB device, it gets flagged. But there's a lot of types of USB devices where, you know, it's not. In fact, this rubber ducky one that you see on here, it actually pretends to be a keyboard when you plug it in. So it bypasses the USB preventative security there and actually logs keystrokes. And guess what? Yeah, it's using malware to do that. So connect those dots, right? So user devices at home, you know, they're plugging stuff in. Maybe they got this from a giveaway or they found it somewhere. You don't know what they're going to be plugging in. So that's a risk when you're working from home. So let's talk about software real quick, right? That's that next category, software. What I mean about this is the new influx of software clients they're installing things, right? And this is a lot of potentially unwanted applications and programs. So you have clients watching YouTube, you know, they see 1,000 ads that they need to add a VPN. So they install some random VPN application, for example. Malware authors are already selling malware based on the COVID-19 map from Johns Hopkins, for example. So the majority of EDR tools out there have unwanted app lists that can blacklist these. And you have everyone installing Zoom, and we're on Zoom, and that's another one, right? So, you know, hackers take advantage of these kinds of situations and VoIP software, right? They're trying to set up home phones or whatnot. So installing all of the software has created another risk vector there. So I'm going to pick on Zoom just because it's a little ironic that we're actually doing this meeting on Zoom, and I have a slide about it. So all software has dirty laundry, really. Not really an excuse, especially for like, you know, the pre-install features and stuff that some of them do, you know, but as the coronavirus, you know, pandemic continues to force people to work from home, countless companies are holding daily meetings using video conferencing solutions from Zoom specifically. And Zoom had a lot of vulnerabilities, and they've tried to patch them and, you know, block these things. But, you know, without the protection of a password, there's a decent chance your next Zoom meeting could actually get what's called Zoom bombed. And I don't know if anyone's heard about Zoom bombing. It's pretty interesting. So hackers, of course, you know, they have lots of time on their hands. The first one was in the chat message in Zoom, and we could test this right now if we really wanted, but you could type in a URL into the Zoom chat, and before it would give you a hyperlink. If someone clicked that, it'd actually give them access, domain access into your system. So what Zoom did is they basically blocked the hyperlinks in the chat. So now you actually have to copy and paste it in somewhere. It's not quite as easy. That was one of them. But you know, what I'm going to draw attention to here with the Zoom bombing is a new automated Zoom meeting discovery tool that the hackers created called ZWarDial. And they're always so creative and clever with this stuff. So a crazy number of meetings at major corporations, they're just using Zoom, but they're not protecting their Zoom with a password. And so this software is designed to give hackers access to your Zoom meetings because they can predict the meeting IDs that are auto-generated by Zoom. And once they get access into the meetings, you know, they're bombing them and, you know, taking over those meetings. So Zoom responded by saying it was enabling passwords by default in the future scheduled meetings. But even if it's not, you know, use the password feature in your Zoom, guys. That way it helps prevent the Zoom bombings, and they can't scan for your meeting IDs as easily that way. So I would no longer automatically, you know, indicate your meeting ID and just use the personal meeting IDs basically. So the incidences of Zoom bombing have skyrocketed over the past, you know, weeks and months, even so much that the FBI has had a warning about it, eavesdroppers on your meetings, just stealing, you know, listening to your intellectual property and your information's there. So again, the hackers now sell this ZWarDial. You can buy this. It's fairly cheap too. So another one. So networking. This is another kind of area of attack that needs to be looked at with remote workers. So I can't stress this enough, and it's maybe shocking, probably not shocking. There is a lack of VPNs going on. Again, this is something that Brian and Mary can help you guys with when you're at home, working from home. But we do see a lot of our clients out there, and a lot of apps and RDPs that do not need to be open to the internet. And if you keep these VPNs up to date, that's good. But if they're not patched and updated, there's a lot of vulnerabilities hackers are taking advantage of to get into the corporate network from ransomware. So some things you can do with the VPNs is split tunnel the VPN if possible. There's no need to have your torrent traffic going over your VPN. So those are some things that you can do. But trust me, it has gotten way easier to install VPNs. It's not like setting up a Cisco ASA from command line anymore. But use them and make sure they're patched. Because again, we are seeing a lot of these VPN hacks going on. We had a client roll out the other day, where we found a botnet. So anyways, again, and patching's huge too, guys. Microsoft announced a vulnerability. It was Microsoft, I think it was Windows 10 vulnerability, and they haven't patched it yet. They just said, oh, it's coming soon. So these are just things that are going to be taken advantage of and exploited. So again, make sure you're patching things or working with a company that can help you to do this as well. So the last one, servers, right? And that RDP thing that you've heard me talk about a couple of times. So look, I honestly fought for a long time regarding the best way to open RDP to the internet. And I worked with Javier, my threat ops director, and we went over this. And the conclusion is there just is not a way to open RDP to the internet and keep it safe. It's just, it's very difficult. So there's more enterprise grade remote desktop solutions that can be explored, preferably with a multi-factor authentication, attached to it. But yeah, there's just no good way to protect things when you've got RDP. Enable multi-factor everywhere, and when it comes to multi-factor, not the SMS one that texts you on your phone, because SIM swaps are happening. They'll actually swap the SIM and can intercept your SMS multi-factor. So use an app-based one that times out and whatnot. And again, these are things that your solution provider can help you with. But yeah, RDP, try not to. So responding to all this stuff that I've been talking about, there's a lot you can do. And, officially, Blackpoint, that's what we do. We protect you guys from this. So, this is an offensive operation. This is what a hacker does. This is kind of the hacker formula, if you will. This is the step-by-step breakdown of an offensive operation. So, the hackers are going to plan it. Then they're going to get that initial intrusion. And I've already talked to you guys about how they're doing this in the remote world via USBs or devices, getting people to click links, enabling macros on email attachments. They're going to get an access to somebody's system. Now, once that happens, then they're going to enumerate that environment. They're going to map it out. They're going to spread. Like I said, when it comes to the ransomware, they're doing this very quickly. They're going 3 days from, intrusion to completing their objective. That's extremely fast when it comes to the ransomware. But the enumeration phase is where they're going to map things out and gather intelligence on that person's endpoint in your environment. And then they're going to laterally spread. So Blackpoint develops Snap Defense, which is our software. And Snap Defense is designed to detect the initial intrusion, the enumeration activities that a hacker conducts, and the lateral spreading. And we actually respond to it by killing the hacker's access in real time to stop them before the damage is done. and you can contact Brian and Mary. Again, they are our provider and our close partner. So, you know, that's what we do to protect it. And when it comes to detection of these things, really and truly, BlackPoint is built to do that. And so we're talking breach detection and real-time threat hunting with the ability to stop it. And we run 24/7, we never close. So that's my selfish plug right there. But anyways, contact Brian and Mary, and they will talk to you more about, you know, how to stop this stuff from happening, and they have the tools and the know-how to do it. But that's all I have, guys. Thank you.
I just want to give some relevance to like what you're saying so that people can relate to it. So, you know, you've got like a mall cop who's going to be like, hey, there's a bad guy here. We need to stop him, you know? And, you know, I see Paul Blart. I'm sorry. Like that's that movie, Paul Blart Mall Cop, like on his little electric thing, like.
Segway.
Yeah. Segway going around, you know, and it's like.
I think Paul Redding's got a Segway.
You know, it's like, that's what people, that's general response. So that's like basic AV. It's like, hey, there's a bad guy in the house. But giving relevance to what this does and what people really need, it's thinking this is special forces. This is like Navy SEAL, you know, Green Beret, Ranger. These are the, lack of a better term, like badass guys going after it. You know, they're in there, they're seeing things, and they are not waiting to deal with it. They just deal with it. If they see a threat, they're neutralizing it. So I just like to give visuals for people to understand what this is and what it's like. I mean, you're not dealing with a mall cop, you're dealing with special force, like trained professionals who are trained to spot and like neutralize any threat to protect, you know, our nation and basically like your vision. That's your little world, that's your country, that's your little nation you've created, and you want to protect it at all costs. So I just like to give that type of viewpoint because that's what makes sense to me. That's how I like to see things.
No, you're absolutely right, Mary. The other analogy I've used too is, you know, AV is kind of like your flu shot, right? You get your flu shot, but if you get strep throat or pneumonia, you need an antibiotic to fight that. You know, the inoculation is not going to help you. So that's kind of the difference, right, between a more advanced solution that is able to protect you better and just having the bare minimum there, which just isn't enough anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Thank you.
Paul Redding, looking forward to him from Compliancy Group.
AKA Jack Nicholson today.
Yes.
Shining. He's going to shine some light.
So, you know, if you had asked me, and by the way, thanks for having me today, guys. I do appreciate it. Ryan, that was awesome as always. I miss seeing that live. But, you know, if you had asked Ryan and I, either one of us, what we were going to be doing the rest of the year, say around February, I think we'd have told you flying somewhere close to 46 weeks this year, right? So my normal office is supposed to be a hotel, and this is as close as I could get to All right. So again, I am Paul with Compliancy Group. Thanks very much for having me today. And what we're going to be talking about is a little bit out of the norm. If you've ever seen Compliancy Group, let me get my screen share going. Normally we focus on HIPAA compliance. That's kind of the place that we live and our bread and butter. What we do is we help people achieve and maintain their HIPAA compliance. But today we're going to be talking about, let's see, everybody got that? We see me in presentation mode? Yay. All right, we are going to be talking about kind of taking advantage of and learning to work in what everybody keeps calling the new normal. And I'm going to give you some ideas about ways you can benefit your business and help yourself grow, and some of the pitfalls that everybody shares, whether you're in medical or basically any industry. So we do a lot of these. I just want to put this up real quick. Compliancy Group, if you know who we are at all, again, we've been in the medical space for a very long time, we were an organization that was basically founded by HIPAA auditors. So you see our seal of compliance here on the left. That's what you get when you complete our process. And our process is a comprehensive look at your organization. We help our clients do all of their audits and build their policies, procedures, everything that it takes to achieve compliance with the HIPAA law. There's quite a bit to it. One kind of shameless plug for us, the failure rate under HIPAA audit is 94%. In our entire 15+ year history, we've never had a client that carries that seal fail one. That's really not because we don't have clients have breaches. Unfortunately, as Ryan can tell you, everyone will eventually be breached. It's more that if you understand the law at the level that we do, you understand regulatory compliance as a whole, there is a way to comply with this stuff. It's about building a culture of compliance, and we help folks do that. That actually makes us somewhat uniquely positioned to explore this topic today, because frankly, I've got clients in many different industries, as healthcare covers lots of things beyond just your local doctor, and in not only every state in the United States, but many countries across the world. And out of those thousands of clients, everyone just had to figure out what we do when we get the collective rug pulled out from under our feet, right? So COVID provided, I think, a lot of insight into the way that the world actually works and what's efficient and what's not. And, you know, while I'm sure any of you out there in the audience, many can agree that it created some challenges, and at first it's probably a little bit bumpier road than we all wish it had been. In the end, some of these lessons are going to stick. Some of these changes are going to be permanent. And we end up with this thing everybody keeps calling the new normal. What I'm defining as this new normal, you'll also hear me call it the hybrid workforce, right? Is a place in which coming back to the office from home, the corporate mentality shifts and says, wait a minute. Why do I need all this space? Why does every employee in my organization need a dedicated desk and phone and the internet associated with it and the hardware, software, all these things? What if we shift our corporate culture and we don't define our organization based around the conversation at the water cooler? Right? So it moves you from the idea that in order to have a well-supervised, well-managed, well-run organization, it meant having, you know, Michael Scott from The Office standing over your shoulder, to a place where by hiring the right people, putting them in the right positions, defining their roles adequately and well, and creating a new metric builds an entirely new corporate culture. Now, it does come with some challenges, right? It changes the risk profile for every organization that does this. That means if you are a 2-user, medical shop, or a 1-person mental health provider, all the way up to, a massive organization like Boeing, everyone had to make a change. Everybody had to suddenly let their employees do things they couldn't do a week or a day before. And when they did that, it shifted. As Ryan pointed out, hackers see an opportunity everywhere there's change. Anytime we make changes, then it gives us an opportunity as human beings to forget to button something up, to overlook one small detail. And that's all these attackers and all these malicious actors need. So believe me, while, it's going to create some opportunity, it also means everybody's under the gun a little bit more than they were before, which produces new challenges for both the IT department, obviously, and, coming out of, let's say, the software and cybersecurity world, that's what I think about. But HR, for example, is a whole new set of challenges around maintaining a good, solid, and functional workspace when that workspace is spread out across Zoom meetings. So what do I think is going to stick around, right? What is absolutely here to stay? Because sure, everybody's going to do it a little bit differently. I'm not here to tell you that every organization in our country is suddenly going to say, I'm emptying my office out, everybody works on Zoom. But let's face it, just the rent reduction alone is going to be hard not to look at. But then when you see that generation, Y, as we're calling it, that these kids out there today that I look at kind of as, the replacement for many of us in the job market moving forward 20, 30 years, they're driven by a completely different set of goals in life. And increasing their job satisfaction makes them more efficient and more productive. And by doing this, it's kind of hard, no matter what your organization looked like before, not to go, wait a minute. So I can run a cheaper, leaner organization in which my employees are happier and more efficient. Okay, I'm listening, right? Then think about skill-based hiring. If you are only hiring here in Memphis, where I live, and you need cybersecurity employees, this is a tough market. Believe me, I've done it. You're not finding everybody that walks out of the local university or the local tech school is capable of filling a seat in Ryan's organization. But if that seat didn't have to be in San Antonio and could be in New York or Hawaii or Alaska or wherever the talent lives, suddenly my hiring pool just exploded and I can get a lot better talent. But it also devalues education just a little bit. I'm not here to doom and gloom on higher education and college, but we have to stop and think about something, right? Suddenly, there are people out there across the world and across the country that have experience doing exactly what I'm hiring for right now. No, they don't live in my town. No, they may not carry the MBA that the guy I was looking at locally does, but can they perform and do they have the skill set that I need? And that leads us to the last thing that I think in the post-COVID era, we all have to understand. Corporations, big and small, we're going to take a look at what we've been doing historically. If you look at your massive corporations in the past, the longer you worked there, the better your resume was when you came in to find your corporate path. You became an executive because you started out aimed at that executive seat, right? But now, successful people are going to rise in corporations because performance is the new metric. We're not going to sit around and dig as deep into a lot of these meetings that have eaten us all alive. Performance itself becomes something that we're all going to be weighed against. So how do we adapt, right? I'm not saying that everybody's going to go home today, rip apart their business and decide, we are now the business of the 2025. No, but I think it's fun. It's a good exercise to look at what it really takes to be a hybrid workforce, right? Okay, let's start with the bad stuff, because if you don't, you have a real problem. You have to really accurately assess your risk. Remember, I told you I come out of HIPAA. This is one of the first and most important rules in any regulatory compliance law, and I believe it should be a rule in all of business. All business action begins with assessing the risk associated with it. Remember, your folks didn't work at home yesterday. They've been behind your firewall. They've had Ryan software installed on their computers. They've had Brian and Mary's team there to help them, and that office has been up to be safe. So take a look at what you're about to do, and before you send everybody out into the world or decide this is how you live, fix the things that are a problem, and I'll show you what some of those are. And then you need to define this new environment you're in, right? Because it's impossible for an employee to do a good job, be happy, and be productive if they don't know what the hell their job is, right? So you really have to sit down and say, yesterday we looked like this, tomorrow and today we are moving forward in this direction, and simply make sure your policies, procedures, your documentation reflects who you as an organization have become. And then it goes back to that corporate culture. Adopt to it, embrace this thing, right? Realize that if you consistently communicate with people, regardless of where they sit, there are many, many people that can be completely productive from home, get drawn into your corporate culture, really be a good, huge piece of the organization, but they don't have to have their butt in the seat right there in the office. If you build what you need from those people around performance and success, and that's how you rate these staff members, their location simply doesn't matter, and you won't feel cheated, and neither will they. And then if you take a look at it, then look at all the increase in profits and the money and everything else. You have to decide, my organization is going to benefit from this. We're not going to be insecure. My people are going to benefit from this. And then we say, okay, how much money are we going to save, and how much, more efficient as a corporation will we become? This is the ultimate goal to adopting that hybrid workforce, and it's why you see the larger guys doing it so willingly, right? Now, warning, and this is for anybody out there that's in the medical space, sure, but also financial sector, manufacturing sector in many cases. If you are under a regulatory law, by the way, your business is in California or New York, right? Many other states, there are penalties for screwing this stuff up. You can't simply say, I'm going to save money on rent. Everybody stay home and work from the laptop that they bought at Best Buy, right? We're seeing these penalties handed out right now. If you look right here, there's like $1 million in fines. And this stuff is not because Ryan didn't have his product in there to save these folks from being hacked. This stuff is because employees didn't know what their job was, didn't have a policy telling them not to leave a laptop in a car or not to carry around paper records and leave them in the trunk, right? This is a failure by the organization to implement basic controls based on the new environment that they find themselves in. So what are those basic controls, right? I'm not here to tell you that every one of you has to become an IT guy, or if you work for a very, very small organization, that you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. But if you work with somebody like Brian and Mary, their team, they're going to tell you that at the very least, anybody they work with must have certain things. And this is whether you're in HIPAA or any other industry, and it goes home with you. Folks, if you don't have strong passwords and preferably multi-factor authentication, some second way to get into that thing, assume you're going to be hacked everywhere that you've left yourself exposed. Your kid's name, your dog's name, all that stuff is on your social media. If that is how you're building your access to these systems, you're screwed. You've got to fix that stuff, okay? I'm very blunt. I'm very straightforward. It's a terrible, terrible thing to use your kid's name and your birth date as your password, okay? Network security. Guys, that thing you bought at Best Buy is not a firewall. That thing that they put in from Comcast is not a firewall. So if you sent all your employees home, realize that there's a reason Brian and Mary came in and put in that firewall at the office. It's to protect your network traffic. There's this thing, it's called a VPN. They can get into the details of how it works, but it's very simple. It connects you back to that safe environment that you've already had built. And now all your people out there are safe, sound, and secure. And in case of HIPAA, compliant, right? Automatic log off, encrypting those endpoints. If you are taking your critical employee or business data, allowing that to be on a computer somewhere out there in the wild, what happens if it's stolen? Encrypt the device. And no, not everything can be encrypted. So again, if they bought the cheapest computer at Walmart, while you're going to save money on rent, it might be time to talk about an upgrade to Windows Pro. The home version, it generally doesn't cut it, right? And then endpoint protection. So this is the world that Ryan lives in. He said EDR, he's MDR, there's no more AV. I like all these letters. Here's the reality. Antivirus is dead. Antivirus is a whole bunch of basically there's definitions that are out there. So if the antivirus catches it, it means everybody already knew this problem existed. You need something beyond that. That's why you talk to folks like Brian and Mary. That's why tools like Ryan's exist, because the hackers are way, 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 way beyond digging through a bunch of known virus databases and trying to hit your computer with this stuff. The threats are very real. Endpoint protection, we don't even say antivirus anymore. We mean the computer, the phone, wherever your critical data lives, you need applications and eyes on that stuff to keep it safe. Now, I said assess your risk, right? Does that mean everybody's got to go to every one of their employees' home offices and dig around through their trash? No, and you're all going to get a copy of these slides, okay? You need to put everything in perspective, right? Brian and Mary have the ability to remotely access the computers these folks are going to use. Through that remote access session, they can hit that little thing over there, that device that they bought at Best Buy. Look, you're not going to put your firewall there. For the love of God, change the password, right? Admin cannot be exposed to the internet on the thing that anybody works from. Whether you're doing work from home or not, we're doing them a favor. But also, let's take the IT portion and the endpoint protection, put that software on it. Now let's talk about the people though, right? Who's reminding them about the email phishing scams Ryan was talking about? Who's talking to them about whether or not they're supposed to print? Who's talking to them about what the people inside their house can hear them discussing? Think about the privacy and security concerns of this new environment and realize, wait a second, do I want Bob's teenager listening in on my accounting meeting tomorrow, right? That you need to talk to your employees and give them policies and procedures and tell them it's their responsibility to secure these environments. Now, I promised I wasn't going to go all IT deep. All this stuff can be done by Brian and Mary's team easily, right? But guys, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. Secure it like you would anything else. Think about your house. If you're going on vacation, what do? All right, same thing. Lock it up, turn on your security, encrypt everything. That employee that's working from outside, those 3 letters I use, VPN, you're not clocked in until you're on the VPN. It's a very straightforward corporate policy and one that's going to protect you over and over and over again. But remember, one more time, guys, it's your responsibility. It's your data. So go ahead and bite the bullet and put some of these advanced security tools out there and on these systems. Now, we're running a little late today, and I didn't want to dive in. I think Ryan did a fabulous job of talking about the risks and all this associated with these platforms. So in our world, we designate everything as, are they compliant or are they not compliant, right? And so the funny thing is, you see these questions, the answer is, well, sort of. Some platforms can be used in some environments and not others. What does it really come down to? And by the way, this is not specific to HIPAA. You are running a business. The stuff that's happening in your meetings is critically important to you, and you don't want it all out there, right? So when you look at a platform that says, you know, they're HIPAA compliant or secure, what do they really mean? They mean we're encrypting and securing the actual session. Kind of stands to reason. It makes sense, right? But what about sharing? Here we have patient data, but what about that financial data of your organization? What about in the chat itself when we shoot these links back and forth, like Ryan showed right here? Are we securing and making sure that if I send you a share link, that's actually somewhere I'm supposed to put this and nobody's hacked it? And then the messaging and the notifications themselves. If your employee is working from a shared computer at the house, is it okay that notifications go off from your Slack or from your Microsoft Teams? Or is there going to be information there that the wife can't see? And then lastly, those session access controls and the recordings themselves. Remember, not every session out there is going to be something you'd be proud to play for all your customers, right? So are your employees capable of recording these sessions down to systems that they themselves own? So what's the end result? Which one's HIPAA compliant? I don't know. It depends on how you use any of these tools. Even the ones that say they're secure or say they're compliant or will sign your BAA can be misconfigured, not set up right, or used improperly and result in massive breaches and expose all your critical data. It goes back to you as an organization assessing your risk. Again, if you think about what's the difference, and Ryan, he hit on this very well, the reality is the systems that are secure do a hell of a lot more to make it that way. They encrypt everything. They define the connection. In some cases, they provide you a version you can host yourself to yank you out of the cloud and the bubble with everybody else and lower that risk profile, right? Oops. They have better password controls, or my favorite, they let you use multi-factor authentication, and they're going to let you, as you yourself are going to be responsible for the rest, right? They're going to stop right there and say, okay, you got this. Now, if we don't have the right tools on your computer and you are using the encrypted version of Zoom and everything is completely safe, and one of the malicious actors that Ryan's team fights gets on your system, guess what? You're still burned. You're still owned. They're recording everything. So you yourself have to make sure those employees are set up securely and safely to work. So now there's a little doom and gloom, right? But I told you I was going to tell you how this benefits you. This is my team. We were 36 deep when we started in the beginning of COVID, and everybody but me and 2 people worked from the office. It was very, very difficult for us to adjust to the new world. Using these tools and getting our team to meet and talk and collaborate every day has drawn us closer together than ever and really redefined our culture. We will never, I don't think, see everybody in that office the same way every day again, but it's going to be good for us in the long run. Now, we're kind of running short on time, so I'm just going to hit and go over things that you need to consider fast before you decide, yeah, hey, I love everything he said, we're going all hybrid workforce. Guys, it's about policies, procedures, and training. It comes down to it over and over and over again. You have to assess your risk, and you have to tell every one of your employees exactly what their job is, what data is private and what is not, what devices can be used and what can't, how they can set up their accounts, who can use their computers, train them on the risks associated with bad email and security problems, and tell them what your rules are. If I don't know my job, I can't do it efficiently. Every single day we're getting hit by this stuff, and if you don't tell your employees, then they're going to get owned, and now Ryan's team is going to have to come save you. Again, you guys are going to get a copy of these slides, so I'll just hit right here. There are very simple things that you need to provide in your policies, and at the end you can download this from us, but it's going to tell your employee over and over again, hey look, this should be in the forefront of your mind. These are the things that put us at risk as an organization. This is what you need to consider on a daily basis. So here's your 3 steps to success, guys. First of all, define your new normal and assess that risk. Don't make this stuff up on the fly. You are a different business than you were last year at this time. Address it in writing and tell your people what it is. Use the right tool. They're not all created equal. I'm sorry, but Norton and Blackpoint are not the same thing. Not different ballpark, different freaking sport. And then lastly, write it down, train it, and make it a part of your corporate culture. Everybody there needs to understand it's their job to enforce these policies and keep your business safe and secure. Here we go, guys. I'm just going to leave this up and hand it back over to you. If you want to download any of our policies to help you, we have it right here. Thanks again for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll just see if anyone has any questions for us. Anyone in the chat have any questions for us they want to reach out? I do have one question for you guys, though, when it comes to, from what you've seen, both from a compliance standpoint and security, what kind of holes have you both seen that's created for your customer base as you guys are going, oh my gosh, like you really need to, I know you kind of went over this some, but is there any like things that have been like a real like ring or don't, you really need to really think through about what you're doing?
That's easy for me. I'll take that one first because it's the same thing over and over and over again. I kind of hit on it at the end. You operate completely differently than you did last year. In any case that you're under any form of regulatory compliance, what you do has to be reflected in your policies and procedures. So everybody ran home and called their IT guy and goes, set up my phone. Nobody said, wait, let's document what we're doing here. So everybody that went home without doing that is at tremendous risk.
So recreating the battle plan, because the war has changed. So instead of trying to go through, and this is just, for people and for them to connect with it, but, we went into war, everybody has their tanks, their drones, etc. Well, we've neutralized that because now we're fighting a different battle. So taking, these strategies and like you said, writing it down so that our battle plan can be different, because we can't guarantee as well that this isn't going to happen again. Like, who knows if a second wave comes through and everybody is forced again to go back, are we prepared for that? We can't think this is one and done. This is something that could happen. And then, let's go down the line a little bit further. And this is what's important for business owners and IT people in general. So look at, if this is what's happened now, let's do worst case scenario. Let's role play this out. So let's say we get quarantined again and it's longer, then how can we, do this? Or if we literally aren't allowed to go back, it's just going down, making specific scenarios so that you can have specific outcomes. That way it's less frightening and people lose less, but then the procedure and the policy is there so that not everybody's freaked out and you can still be productive. That's kind of the whole point. You lose productivity and you lose profit when people don't know what to do and they're just sitting there. So if you've documented it, like you said, and created that pathway and lined out that battle plan, then people can really go back to that and know what to do. You can pivot easier if you know where to pivot to or from.
Yeah.
Ryan, how many fake COVID websites have been created here in the last?
Oh my gosh. I can't even give you a number because they're constantly going up. So, I mean, it is literally there, and they didn't waste any time doing it either. It was like, oh, great, we're going to use this to fish everybody now. Like I said, the John Hopkins map, that was a big one. You know, and to what you were saying before, you know, testing everything. I mean, that's really the key, right? Like, you used to have a backup and recovery plan and an incident response plan when you were at your office. So, why, you know, test things now and make sure it works in the remote world as well. It's just going to go to help later, you know, even, and Paul touched on this too. I mean, I think even when we start to head back to the office and things start to get a little bit more normal, businesses are not going to operate like they used to, because now they know that they can actually maintain a business in a remote world or a remote workforce. At the very least, it's probably going to be, you know, you can come work a couple of days from the office, you can work from home a couple of days. You know, I think productivity has increased with people working from home too. And they've shown that in the numbers. So, you know, those things are all going to change. So make sure you test those incident response plans, come up with new incident response plans, make sure you're compliant. I mean, you do not want to pay a fine, not now, not with everything all screwy. We're heading into a huge recession. In the midst of it, you know, maybe the likes of the Great Depression, you know, all these things going on. People that are smart and can save their money and have a lower cost of goods sold, and, you know, all of those things are going to start to matter. So incident response plan is definitely part of that, and being compliant and not getting fined.
That was good stuff, guys. That's what we wanted to give people in creating that pathway. So I'm going to type stuff up and send it to the people who attended to kind of give them a breakdown, just a recap of what did with like bullet points, because it was great. Not only is it, you know, compliance and policy and literal checklists to go by for companies to be able to function, but then on the security side, you know, what we need to be looking for and why. And that's what people, you know, that helps people because they don't know. And when everybody dispersed and dispatched and flew the coop, you know, nobody was like, hey, we don't see that big, you know, eagle or, you know, hawk getting ready to come down and eat us because we're a little bird. So, you know, this really helps to give a pathway for people and tangible products to take back and put into their business and implement, which is crucial right now. Because when I was talking to Brian Stanley earlier, it's like people just want to be told what to do. They don't want to be like, they hear a bunch of noise and they hear a bunch, this is what I should do, but they literally just want someone to tell them what to do.
Right.
So that's, you know, this really helps to give people a path of what to do and how to do it. So we appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciated all that great knowledge. We did have a couple viewers who were having tech issues, ironically, who emailed me and said that they couldn't log in or they were losing internet at their house. So I will make sure that they get this webinar once we post it on YouTube. Again, I really appreciated all the great input, and I learned so much. Like I said, this is going to shape my return to work policy that I'm writing. And so I'm really grateful to have you guys now as colleagues and friends that I can call on. And again, I think that checklist that you're providing, Mary, will help a lot of people, because you're right. I think a lot of people are really just looking for someone to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And
Brian, the other thing that I've just did some reading last night, the state of Virginia's cybersecurity has changed a lot this year, and it's going to continue to evolve over the next 3 years. Insurance itself took a big, huge law that was put into place here in March. It was something that me and Paul have been talking about. And so it's going to be significant for the insurance providers that sell to people every day.
mm-hmm.
So we're here. We're going to help tell people what to do and how to do it. We're going to lead the charge.
Yes. Well, awesome.
Love to help.
What?
Well,
I said love to help.
Yes, yes.
No.
That's why we have help. I'm like, that's what we want to bring. I'm like, we're not rogue warriors. We're coming with a whole full-blown, fully highly trained tactical army to help people. That's what we want to do.
So, and Ryan's got the general, you know
That's
what I'm saying?
right.
That's right.
I've got a couple generals.
Couple.
That's right. So thank you, Brian. Thank you to NCI for helping us, and obviously to Ryan and Paul.
Yep, thank
And
you
you know,
guys.
resources that anybody needs or wants. You know, you have the emails. You can contact any of us, and we will make sure that you get help, and you know, the checklist and stuff as well, just to help tell you what to do and how to do it through this season. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate you having us.